Now that we've looked at how to make bone, how to maintain bone, how bone remodels, we need to look at what happens when the bones aren't intact, fractures. Now, a fracture is going to heal regardless if there is medical intervention or not. Just depends on if it heals properly or if it happens to heal in a misaligned formation. Now, there are two main kind of categories of these fractures. You have the closed reduction fracture. In a closed reduction, no surgery is needed for the reset. Someone is able to externally manipulate it by using their hands or whatever tools to get it back into proper alignment. So surgery is not needed. But in the case of the open reduction, that one surgery is needed to make sure it goes back into proper alignment. So it depends on the type of fracture, depends on how severe it is, depends on location, as far as if you need to have it as a closed reduction or an open reduction, a surgery to reset. All right, a couple different types of fractures to go through. We'll start with the closed or simple fracture. In a closed or simple fracture, the actual fracture remains within the skin, never actually tears or goes through the skin, so it remains internal. Now, while this can obviously be very severe, it's not as severe or problematic as the open fracture, because the open or compound, you'll notice it tears through the skin. The reason this is more problematic is because by tearing through the skin, at least one part of the bone, if not multiple parts, is anytime you break the skin like this, it increases the risk for infection inside the skin. Now, with the bone protruding through, that means the actual bone itself was now exposed to the outside environment and any potential pathogens that were there. So the infection might not just simply be in the skin, the infection could potentially be inside the bone as well. So these can become more problematic because of the complication of infection potentially. Transverse fracture. Now in a transverse fracture, you're going in a straight line across the axis. So it's going straight across the axis of the length of the bone. That's a transverse fracture. Spiral fracture. Now a spiral fracture, you see the line going across here. What's really happening is it can spiral around the actual bone. So it can actually take it and go around the bone in a spiral fashion. Usually this will happen is if the bone gets planted, or maybe plant a foot and then twist. But as the foot twists, maybe the body doesn't, or the foot locked in place and the body twists. But it's this spiraling or twisting moment that can actually cause the bone to have this spiral fracture around it. Comminuted fracture. In the case of comminuted fracture, you can see how there are multiple pieces of this bone. The comminuted fracture has smaller pieces of the bone in between the two major large pieces. Could be 1 or 2 pieces, could be 4, 5, 6, whatever. But there's small pieces that are broken up in between the two main pieces of the bone. Impacted fracture. Now this one, you notice there's an arrow pointing up. It means these two ends, the two ends of the bone, instead of just simply breaking, they broke and then got jammed into each other. So one actually being pushed into the other bone. This has to be pulled back apart before it can be reset. Because if it's not pulled back apart to the proper length, the bone won't match the other bone on the opposite side, for example. A lot of times these are due to compression. So the femurs show an example here. In the case of the femur, if that was one, maybe someone jumped and landed on their feet, but the height was too much and the femur actually compressed into itself. Green stick fracture. Now green stick fracture, they're showing it's not all the way across. Usually green stick fractures occur more in children than in adults because children have more collagen, so the bones are a little more flexible. Hence the idea of a green stick. If you have a branch on a tree that's green and living, you bend it. If it happens to crack, it usually doesn't crack all the way through though, only part way through. Same idea with the bone. Green stick fractures, the bone cracked, but not all the way through. So usually younger will have these more prevalent than older. Oblique fracture. Pretty much the oblique fracture is anything that's not at a 90-degree angle. Could be the angle shown, could be a sharper angle, could be a more subtle angle. But as long as it's not an exact 90 degrees, it's called an oblique fracture. So once these are all occurring, obviously the bone is broken. So how does the body try to heal or repair from this? That's what we're looking at now for bone repair. The initial phases, initially when you first tear this blood vessel up and tear up the bone, you can see how the blood vessels are torn and that area fills with blood. Because of the torn blood vessels, blood will keep going in that area. In this particular case, the periosteum was still intact. Because of that intact periosteum, it kind of helped contain the blood a little bit. But this initial blood clot, this hematoma, will usually form in the first 6 to 8 hours after break. So at that point, usually things are kind of stop bleeding and they're kind of contained unless a larger vessel was damaged. All the cells around the edges, so all these cells around the edges, are dead. They've broken, they've fractured. The body needs to clean them up and start getting rid of them. So the macrophages will come in, start to remove that decaying and dead cells, the cells that aren't functional anymore. Try and clean up this site to make sure the new cells can be put in place and the living cells are what remain behind. Well, after that hematoma is there, give or take about 48 hours, so this is usually 1 to 3 days, but average is 2 days. In about 2 days' time, you'll form an internal fibrocartilaginous callus. So just in between the bone here and here, this area. That fibrocartilaginous internal callus helps to start to stabilize the bone. You'll also have this external callus. The external callus is helping to also stabilize the bone further. But they're made from different things. The internal callus is more of a fibrocartilaginous callus. It's made from the endosteum, while the external callus is more of a hyaline cartilage model with some bone in there, made from the periosteum. But together, they're meant to stabilize the bone to prevent it from shifting. By stabilizing, it's allowing the healing process to start occurring. Because it's kept in place, the bone cells, those osteoblasts, can start to regrow and reform the bone. This is also why, if you've ever heard the idea someone has to re-break a break before it can be set properly, maybe someone broke a bone but didn't get to the doctor right away, and then a couple days later they're going, oh, you gotta re-break it to reset. This is what they're referring to as the re-break. This fibrocartilaginous callus and the external hyaline-based callus have come stabilized. They must be rebroken to reset it properly in place. And that's what they're checking. A lot of times you have a broken bone, they check up at certain times, making sure that the alignment is proper and nothing is shifted in these calluses, or these calli. So all this now allows the blood vessels to come back in, allows the osteoblast to start reforming new bone tissue. So all of those dead osteoclasts, they're gone from the macrophages, the osteoclast itself, all the osteocytes are being removed if they're dead. So the key thing is, anything that's dead, not fully functional, partially there, get it out. Only healthy osteocytes and then healthy osteoblasts will be found here. The idea is you're now starting to create this spongy bone in the middle. The spongy bone is replacing the actual calli, the external internal calli. By doing this, is creating a hard callus. This hard callus can take some force, not full weight, but can start to take some force. Usually about 4 or 6 weeks out is when this is there. And that's also why a lot of times a cast comes off in 4 or 6 weeks. Because they want to make sure the bone starts to move, you start to have the muscles moving, because as long as that cast is in place, you're limiting muscles use, you're limiting the actual movement of the bone. So once there's enough stability, you want to get things moving carefully, but start to get things going. Because the bone isn't fully formed yet. You'll notice it's all spongy bone here, but the key thing is that's missing. You don't have any compact bone on the outside edges. There's no compact bone for stability, for strength. The reason here is the actual spongy bone can grow faster than the compact bone. But by the time everything's all said and done, this full repair process, you'll notice there's a bulge on both sides. That might be there for a while, or it might go away pretty quickly. All depends on how your body is remodeling this bone. But you do have the compact bone in place on both sides. So that particular bone, that exact spot that broke, that's pretty strong now. It's pretty solid. You have the compact and the spongy bone. Everything's in place. Now, this spongy bone will be removed to allow for the medullary cavity to reform. But again, that's bone remodeling as you go through. So it's all about trying to reset the structure and make sure the bone is back to a healthy state. If anything, that spot that was broken is a little stronger than the rest, until at least the remodeling makes the same width. But that remodeling can take weeks, months, could even take years, depending on the size of the break, depending on how much of this matrix was laid down. So fractures and repair. The body can break the bone sometimes, but your body can also then heal and repair them. The trick is to make sure the alignment of the bone is proper before the actual internal, external calli are laid down.